being made by Alberta voters with some of this country's top pollsters. Sachi Kurl is the president of the Angus Reid Institute, and Andrew Enns is the executive vice president of Léger's Central Canada operations. Thank you both for joining us and for being there, because this is quite an interesting election that we're looking at. I know, albeit from afar, but you'll be able to tell us more. So Sachi, I want to start with you. We're seeing many polls telling us it is still too close to call. Do you see it that way, and how is it that close to call?
It has everything, Joyce, to do with voter turnout. So we know where and in which regions and in which battlegrounds each party has an advantage. Outside of the cities, it's UCP that has a very heavy vote intent advantage. The NDP doing very well in Edmonton. Overall, in terms of our polling, and polls can compare across different points in time and different methodologies, show that there is a general population voting advantage for the UCP. But of course, you know and I know that it's not just the number of votes that are cast, it's where they're cast. And so this focus on Calgary is because it is a true battleground. But even then, despite the fact that we're seeing a lot of people showing a lot of enthusiasm for the NDP, including in Calgary, this really comes down to ground game. And so why is Rachel Notley saying she's not going to talk to media now, she's going to spend the next several days campaigning, really pulling the vote? It's because NDP voters tend to be younger, they tend to vote with less reliability than older UCP-leaning voters. And so for the NDP to have a path to victory, they have to have a great outing, a great showing in Edmonton, and they also have to do very, very strongly in Calgary. And that is where those younger voters really need to be pulled to the ballot box. They need to show up if the NDP has a chance to win. Otherwise, the advantage tilts to the UCP.
Andrew, that's interesting. Calgary is the battleground, and according to one poll that I saw, they're equally popular at 42%, the two leaders. So what will be the determining factor? Will it be, as Sachi say, getting out the vote, whichever party gets the vote out, or is it to woo the undecided voters? How do you see it?
Well, thank you for having me on your program. For sure, I think, as Sachi noted, the get out the vote by the parties is critical. This is where it's gearing up, and it's going to be in full force over the next few days. But I also think it does come down to who has been able the last critical 4 or 5 days and going into this weekend, being able to get onto a message track that's stable and be able to drive it home. I think you've seen the UCP get onto an economic focus. I think they've also been driving the negative messaging around the NDP. The last week or so has been better, including the debate for Ms. Smith, and there hasn't been the sort of those instances of the missteps by Smith or those old comments coming back to haunt her in the last 4 or 5 days. So I think that helps them in terms of getting that coherent, consistent message out to voters. And I think you see the NDP will just be going as hard as they can. I think it'll likely be fairly negative in terms of on the UCP, on their record in government, pandemic, on the Smith side of things, and it really. And as Sachi said, I mean, that advantage of that older voter, I think the interesting thing to watch on voting day is going to be what this turnout is. We saw a very high turnout in the 2015 election, or sorry, in the Jason Kenney election, when he came to power. We saw kind of a moderate turnout when the NDP won. Turnout's going to be very important here in terms of who shows up and quite frankly who stays home, and if it favors one party over another.
Sachi, just a few months ago, the NDP, everybody said, oh, it's Rachel Notley's, she's going to win. Things have changed. What is it? Daniel Smith promising big spending. What happened to Rachel Notley in the last weeks?
It's not just the last weeks, Joyce. I would argue it began with the ascension of Danielle Smith at the top of the UCP. People say to me all the time, Shachi, what is going on? Why have we seen the NDP staying still, but the UCP gaining ground? So much of it had to do with the reuniting of the United Conservative Party after the ouster of Jason Kenney. The NDP was in a very strong position and is often in a very strong position when the right in Alberta is split. And we saw that leading up to the ouster of Jason Kenney. And now it's in the past, it's out of the way. And Danielle Smith is able to hold a lot of traditional Alberta Conservative voters who may not love her, but it's a pretty significant ideological switch to cross the street to the NDP. And as well, the more libertarian, fiery, wild rose-esque base of the UCP that is all in on Danielle Smith. So she's managed to pull those coalitions together. Yes, there's been some noise and chatter in the last days with some former Conservatives now throwing behind Rachel Notley. The thing with these types of endorsements across the divide, if you will, it's always questionable how many people they actually pull across, and so I'll be watching for that. But there's also been so much, and Andrew talks about the messaging of the campaign. You know, when we hear that very clear message from the UCP and Danielle Smith around economic management at a time when Alberta is starting to surge back a little bit, around oil and gas management, you know, ironically, there's not a ton of difference. There isn't a significant difference, and I'm sure the strategists on both sides will scream at me, and that's fine. But, you know, between Rachel Notley's oil and gas plan and Danielle Smith's oil and gas plan, but it is a perception issue. Smith is perceived to be better on managing the economy, better on oil and gas, and if those become the ballot questions that frame this vote, it does again provide a bit more of an advantage to Smith.
So before I go, I want to ask you, Andrew, you know, the men-women divide, or, you know, do you know when you're polling, you know, which of the two leaders is more likable, or, you know, is sort of somebody more trustworthy?
Well, we did a poll, I think, a few weeks back where we looked at those questions with the two leaders, and certainly Rachel Notley, at a leader-to-leader level, has more redeeming characteristics in the eyes of the voters in terms of some of what you talked about, you know, the trust and you know, empathy and things of that nature. There is unpredictability about Danielle Smith that is a bit disarming for voters, but as Sachi noted, there's an ideological divide, and there is a brand issue with the NDP that is really sort of, you know, interfering. It's like, I like that leader, but that party and where that party what that party stands for, I'm not as comfortable with. And I think that is, you know, that's the conundrum for a lot of voters. And I think it's important to kind of remind ourselves, even though when you think of the Kenney government, you know, and all it went through, pandemic, and then the internal civil war, and then the new leadership and it feels like they've been there a long time, but it's 4 years. And it's only been about 4 years ago when the NDP government was in power. And that wasn't a good experience for Albertans. Albertans were, by the time that government changed over, it was not popular. You can argue that, you know, lots of external factors led to some of the problems they experienced when they were in power. But nonetheless, I mean, there's a couple of factors that are still weighing heavily on voters if they decide to go back to the NDP.